Celebrate Independence Day by making a delicious Moscato wine. Okay, today for our Moscato white wine, we have our ingredients here. Very simple. We have nature blessed white grape muscat juice concentrate from Coloma Frozen. We'll leave a link in the description for that. You can also get it on Amazon. And 3 quarts of water, or 96 fluid ounces, and 5 grams of Fermaid O yeast nutrient. And our yeast will be Red Star Premier Côte de Blancs. I don't speak French. Côte des Blancs. Côte de Blancs. So, like I said, very simple. Again, as always, all of our equipment has been sanitized in our sanitization tub with Star San. So let's just get started. We're going to start with our Muscat juice concentrate. Again, this is a varietal grape juice. It has everything but the skins and seeds and stems, but we take out the middleman of the stomping of the grapes. So this is just a simple white wine, a Moscato. We'll just get our juice concentrate in there. All right. We want to get every last drop of juice out of there. So we're going to just take our funnel, add some of our water that we're going to eventually add in there anyway to our bottle. And we'll just fill it about a third full or so. The Muscat juice isn't quite as thick as some of the red grape variety juices, so it doesn't take quite so much to get it out of the bottle. Some of the Merlots and Pinot Noirs have a lot of the goop on the bottom that you want to try and get out of there, but this is a light juice, a lighter grape, so pretty easy to get all the juice out of the container. Smells like grapes. All right. Next, we're going to add our 5 grams of Fermaid O. Fermaid O is a yeast nutrient. There's also Fermaid K. Fermaid O just happens to be the organic version. You can get it on Amazon. Again, we're using 5 grams to help. This will help the yeast get a good start, give them some nutrients to go along with the sugar in the grape juice. Okay, got our yeast nutrient in there. And let's go ahead and fill the rest of our water in. You know what? Let's do this. Let's put our yeast in first. That way we can rinse whatever's stuck in the funnel down into the fermenter. This yeast packet is good for up to 5 gallons. Again, we're only making a gallon, but I've had these yeast for a little while. On the packet, it recommends you use it within 5 months. It's been about 5 months. So I just go ahead and use the whole packet. Give the yeast every fighting chance they can to get started. And then we'll just rinse all that yeast out of the funnel with the rest of our water. Some of it's stuck in there. I'm trying to get it unstuck. There we go. Now we got it all. And you want to fill it to a gallon. So we had a quart or 1 quart of the muscat juice and 3 quarts of the water. Should bring us right up to a gallon. I'm going to stop a little short and kind of give that a mix. You can see real dark at the bottom. That's all the juice. I'm just going to give it a mix before I finish. And I need to get my bung. So we'll get that and we'll get it mixed up. All right, we've got our bung here that we'll use with our airlock, but I'm going to put my thumb over the hole and just give it a good mix. Get all of that juice and water and yeast nutrient all mixed together real good. Also oxygenate the must. Yeast needs oxygen to start the colonies. As I've said before, once you always want to be a little careful. It likes to spit sometimes. Once there's alcohol in the brew, you do not want oxygen, but before, when getting started, you definitely want oxygen in there to help get the yeast colonies started. All right, we'll add the rest of our water up to a gallon. You want to get above the shoulder and minimize your headspace, but you don't want to get too high, because if it starts to get really active in its fermentation, it's going to want to foam over, which isn't the end of the world. You just put a blow off tube on there and then you have no problem. But I'm going to stop there and maybe just cheat. I'm going to get a little greedy. All right, better stop there or I'll have a mess. Okay, done with the funnel. And we'll give it another mix with the stopper in. Make sure we get the last of that water mixed up with the rest of the must. We want a good equal mix so that when we take a reading here in a minute, we know that we have a good reading because it's all thoroughly mixed. All right. No spitting today. That's good. So next we'll take a reading and see where our starting gravity will be. This will give us some idea of what our alcohol content will be at the end of this fermentation. And need to be sure and update my notes. I always take notes so that when I want to make this brew again, I have something to refer back to and I can make it the same way. All right, we are floating. Let's take a reading here. We are sitting at 1.09. Let's call it, got some bubbles in there. We're going to call it 1.090. And if I look over to the other side of the scale on this, it'll give us a rough idea of what our alcohol content will be. We're looking at roughly about 12%. We could do the math on that and figure it out too. We'll assume that we're going to let this ferment all the way to dry, which means that the yeast will consume all of the sugar, and so then we'll do our reading at the end and calculate our ABV. It'll also help us know when our wine is finished. Again, this was sanitized. Everything was sanitized, so I can pour this back in without worrying about infecting my brew. If you didn't sanitize this equipment, which I strongly encourage you to sanitize, you wouldn't want to put that back in. I suppose you could drink it. It'd be pretty sweet, but you always want to sanitize everything. That way you ensure that you don't get any infections in your brew, spoilage, those types of things. So um, always sanitize. Can't stress that enough. So now we just need to get our airlock on there to keep the oxygen out and the bugs out and the puppy dog hairs out. And I just use some of the Star San solution. That way, just water isn't quite as effective against bugs. They have been known to swim through it. So I use the Star San. As I've mentioned before, the Star San is a little bit acidic. And so if you're using plastic or rubber equipment, you don't want to leave it in there too long. Just, 10 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever, enough. The acid it's a mild acid, but it will start to degrade your rubber and your plastics. So don't leave it soaking in there for hours. It only takes, I think the directions say 10 or 15 seconds. I usually leave it in there about that long. Okay, better take some notes here. Got some of them started. It's a Moscato. The date, our reading, starting gravity was 1.090. We have 1 quart of Nature Blessed Muscat juice concentrate, 3 quarts of water, 5 grams of Fermaid O yeast nutrient, and 1 packet of the Red Star Premier Côte de Blanc. So, what's next? Next, we wait. We let it sit in our fermentation room and in a dark place. It's usually about 70, 72 degrees in mine. And this yeast kind of likes that temperature range. If you're curious what yeast to use, do a little research. Go on the internet and do some great googly moogly and look up your yeasts. It'll tell you which yeasts are better with which grape varieties, which styles of wine you're wanting to make. That's about it for now. We're just going to let this set, probably take at least a week, maybe a little longer. Usually takes about a week for me, and we'll check back in and see how it's doing. Here we have the Moscato fermentation going after only 2 days. You can see it's a very active fermentation. Got a pretty good head of foam going on there. That is an indication of good fermentation. The yeast are active, and the airlock is really going crazy. So this is looking good after only 2 days. Okay, we are going to continue with our Moscato, and it's been 12 days and it's pretty well settled down. There's not a lot of activity, if any, in the airlock. So we are going to take a reading. When we started, we started at, where did we start? 1.090. And we used 1 quart of Nature Blessed Muscat juice concentrate, 3 quarts of water, 5 grams of Fermaid O, and 1 packet of Red Star Premier Côte de Blanc's yeast. So pretty simple. All right, let's take a reading and see where we're at. As usual, everything's been sanitized in our sanitization bucket we have right over here, including my hands. So let's get some of this up in our cylinder and see where our gravity is sitting. Our specific gravity, excuse me. Okay. Smells like a wine. Smells like a nice white wine, which is what it is. And our specific gravity is, let me get that to stand up straight here. We're sitting at 0.992. That's pretty dry. That is really dry. So that's good. It is finished. I don't think I've ever seen it go too much lower than that. So we're going to put today's date in our note and write down our final gravity of 0.992. And we are going to rack this to another fermentation vessel and get it off the lees. This is our first rack, so we need to get it into another fermentation vessel for conditioning. And just to be sure, after we let it sit, after we rack it and put an airlock on it and let it sit for a few days, when it's kind of cleared out and we're ready to bottle, we'll take another reading just for fun, just to make sure. But I have never seen it go, I think 0.990 is as low as I've ever seen it go. Two points is not going to make a big difference. So I am pretty confident that it is done. Put that in here and get some of this stuff out of the way. And we need something to elevate our wine. So we'll take our handy dandy peanut bucket. And as you can see, I've had some of the peanuts we've had this bucket a long time. Let's see, let's get that up there. As you probably know, if you've been watching, we've been having problems with our auto siphon. I bought a pair of new ones, and today's a racking day. We've got 2 or 3 brews that we're racking, doing our first rack, and of course the brand new auto siphons don't work. So that's very disappointing, but we went back to our old standby, which we have here, and it worked for us. So praise be, we were able to get our racking done here. So let's get this in here, get our racking, our auto siphon on the other end. Since this is our first rack, I'm going to leave the little cap on the bottom, just keep some of that lees out of our pitcher. And we just go down about halfway and we give it a few pumps and pray that it works. And hey, we got a siphon going. So we're in business. So I'll just kind of hold this up off the bottom so we don't stir up the lees on the bottom. It's a nice little, looks like a little lees cake, about an, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but we'll show you when we're done. But hopefully we get pretty close to a gallon. We should. We might be a little short. That's okay. Something we need to do is calculate our ABV. So we'll do that here when we're done racking. Went from 1.090 to 0.992. I'm going to guess we're probably around 12%. We'll have to calculate that out to be sure. But And of course, we'll put the calculation on the screen so you know how we do that in case this is the first time for you. As you know, we take the beginning or starting gravity minus the final gravity, and we multiply that by a coefficient or a factor. We use generally 135. I'm not sure exactly where that came from. Some scientists figured that out, but if it's a lower ABV brew, like a cider, I'll use 131.25 just because it's a little more accurate calculation for that lower ABV. But this is going to be up in the 12% more than likely. So um, we'll use the 135 coefficient. And whoops, want to get it all the way to the bottom and try and get as much out of there as we can. One thing about these narrow mouth fermenters, you can't really get the auto siphon angled into the edge or the corner of the jar, so you lose a little bit more, but there's always loss. It's the cost of doing business. So we've kind of stopped here. I kind of broke the siphon. I'm going to risk getting some of these in there. We got quite a bit in the bottom. I think we're going to lose that. We're just not going to get that. Yeah. Well, we are at about 112 ounces. It's going to be about maybe 4.5 bottles. That's okay. It's going to be pretty high alcohol content, so we can enjoy it anyway. It's going to be a nice Moscato. Usually, Moscatos aren't real high in alcohol content, but 12 isn't too bad. 12 is a nice amount of alcohol. So let's get this out of the way. Get this off to the side a little bit. Get our peanut bucket out of the way. Done with that. And we have our other fermentation vessel in the sanitization bucket, making sure it's sanitized well. The lid, the fermenter, the airlock, all sanitized in the Star San and water solution. Let's calculate the ABV. Starting gravity of 1.090 and final gravity of 0.992. Subtract those two to get 0.098. Multiply that times 135. 13.23, or about 13%. So that's about right. So to make a note here, 13% ABV. All right. So what we need to do now, I think, is we need to bring our peanut bucket back over here to elevate our pitcher of mead. So we need our handy peanut bucket. We need to get the auto siphon and sanitize it in our sanitizing bucket. I'll get this sanitized and be right back. All right, we're back. We'll just get our auto siphon going here. There we go. We're racking this to a wide mouth fermenter. Hopefully we won't be that much short to minimize headspace. I'm going to just let that rest right there. I want to try and above the shoulder so that it minimizes the risk of oxygenation. I think the alcohol amount is high enough that the risk is very low. The volume is right at the shoulder, maybe a little above, so I think it'll be okay. I'll get the lid on it, and I'll get the airlock filled with sanitization liquid to the fill line. Put that in the grommet, being careful not to push the grommet in. Then we'll let it sit for 4 or 5 days and let that lees settle out to the bottom, and we'll check back in. So pretty, I almost hate to cut into it. Oh, it's juicy. Crispy, flaky crust. It's going to fall apart, but that's okay. It all tastes the same. Oh, that is so awesome. Let's take a little taste. This is going to be scorching hot, but we're going to do it for you guys. Mmm. Crispy, flaky crust. Mmm. That little sugar texture on top adds to the sweetness. All right. It's been another week. The Moscato white wine has been sitting, and for a brief second when I took a look at it, I got a little freaked out. I forgot we put a mesh bag with marbles in it to bring the fluid level, the wine level above the shoulder. Um, that's okay. It just kind of startled me for a second, but it's looking pretty good. So we're going to, let's see, last time we checked this, the specific gravity was 1.032. As you can probably see, I've got my racking equipment, my bottling equipment here, and we're hoping to bottle today. So let's just get a reading. We racked this off, so there shouldn't be a lot of lees in the bottom. There's a little bit, I can see it in there, so we want to be careful not to disturb it too much, shake it, bump it. But let's go ahead and get a gravity reading here. Get our hydrometer and our cylinder and our baster. We'll just gently go in beside the mesh bag, and we'll get a reading here. Smells like a Moscato, really, which is what it is. White wine. It's got a really nice smell to it. Ooh. Okay. Like I said, last time was 1.032. I don't expect that it changed much. Let's just take a look. It is very gassy. There's a lot of bubbles in there. And looks like 1.03, 1.032. It has not moved, so it is finished as I expected. It's going to be a little on the sweet side, but Moscatos generally are, so that's okay. we are going to set this aside. We don't want to put it back in here. We'll stir up all that lees. So we're just going to set it aside so I don't knock it over. We'll come back to that. Actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go ahead and put that in our pitcher because we're going to be racking to a pitcher. So no sense letting that sit and risk knocking it over. Put that right there for now. I'm going to gently pour this into the pitcher. We put the marbles in because we were a little below a gallon. I believe, if I remember right, it was about 112 fluid ounces. So we will have less than 5 bottles, a little less than a gallon, but that's okay. We have some 16-ounce swing tops that we can use. So what we need to do, make a little more room for myself here. We are going to bring in the handy dandy peanut bucket of elevation. We need to get the wine up above our pitcher so that we can get the siphon to work. And I am just going to leave the bag in there so as not to disturb everything, stir everything up. So we'll get our auto siphon. Has been sanitized, and our tubing has also been sanitized in the Star San solution. We do not have the cap on the bottom. I don't expect there's a lot of leaves. We want to try and get as much of this as we can, so took the cap off. We're going to just put that in there. We're going to gently put this auto siphon down beside the mesh bag of marbles, about halfway down. We're going to give it a few pumps to get it started. I think we are going. Not quite. Hopefully we don't have problems. Yeah, we're making a big mess now. We got the siphon going though. This is why it helps to have a third hand. Um, I make these mistakes so you don't have to. We're going to let this go. I'll hold on to the hose. This is not the first time I've made a mess like this. You'd think I'd learn from my mistakes, but that's okay. It all cleans up. It'll just smell nice in here. We'll get it cleaned up. We only lost a few ounces, hopefully. They do make a clip that you can clip onto the hose and onto the pitcher. I've had mixed success with that. I may have to revisit that, rethink that option. Doing this myself, sometimes it's a challenge when you have 2 hands and you need a third, but we just will figure it out. The smoking and drinking puppy will come in here and probably lick the floor. I won't let him. I'll get it cleaned up before he does. I don't think he likes wine anyway. He might. It's pretty sweet. Okay, we are getting close. And when you hear that gurgle, lift it up and you are done. So what I'm going to do is take the hose off. I lost a few ounces, just under 112 ounces. So I will get this mess cleaned up and we'll be right back. Okay, so now that you all have seen firsthand what happens when you don't keep a handle on your siphon hose, you will all know not to do that for yourselves. Now, I'm sure you wouldn't do that. You're all much smarter than me, so that's okay. We're doing fine. So we're going to have 4 bottles and enough for a taster. So what we're going to do is I am going to take, so you all know how we do this. We have our bottling wand, which is a stainless steel tube. They also make plastic ones, and it's got a stem valve on the end, a spring-loaded stem valve, and you take your auto siphon, connect it to the other end, put that in your wine. You put the bottle wand into your bottle, and when you push down on the bottom of the bottle with that stem valve, it opens that up and allows that siphon to go and fills your bottle. When the wine gets just about to the top and about to overflow, you pull it out. The stem valve seals and it stops the flow, but doesn't break the siphon. And then you can start with your next bottle. I am going to do this. It's a lot easier if you put your bottle down lower where we can handle this. So I've got it on a little stool down here below the table, and we'll be able to control this much better this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our siphon, our auto siphon, into our pitcher of wine. And I think I'm going to have to shorten this hose. That could be part of my problem. It's too much hose to manage here. So that's okay. I'll just cut it off, and it'll be a little easier to manage. So you need to have the stem valve depressed on the bottom, in the bottle to get the siphon to go. So when you put it in there, you got to press it down. If you have a bottle with a punt or the dimple on the bottom, it's a little trickier. You got to have that stem valve right on the tip of that punt, but it's doable. It just takes a little practice. So I've got the stem valve depressed. I'm going to try and get my siphon going here. And I think we are going. I put a little light on the subject down here. So I can see what I'm doing. Hate to make another mess. My siphon is not going. I think we're going to have problems with our auto siphon again. Let me try and troubleshoot our problem here. I'll be right back. Okay, after several minutes of battling with the auto siphon, I was able to get them bottled. It was not fun video. Well, it might have been fun for you to watch, but I did get them bottled. We have 4 full bottles. You'll see I'm using screw top bottles. Normally, most of my bottles are cork type bottles, and usually I cork them, but I had these 4 screw top bottles, and I'm glad, because this was a real chore. I'm thinking of naming this wine Calamity Wine, because it was just a one calamity after another. So definitely going to have to get a new functioning auto siphon. I actually have one on the way. Just didn't get here in time for shooting. But anyway, we have 4 bottles of Moscato and just enough to taste. It's a little cloudy. That'll clear out in the bottle. It's no problem. We'll let those sit on the rack for a while, and I'll probably put them in the bottle bunker for a week or so, just to make sure. I mean, we know that it's done fermenting, but as a matter of practice, I always put them in the bottle bunker just to make sure they don't rupture or explode. So they'll go in the bottle bunker for a week, and then they'll go on the wine rack. I do sometimes make labels. I'll probably make some labels for these, but let's go ahead and let's give this Moscato a taste here. Smells like Moscato. It's got a nice smooth smell to it, not a harsh alcohol smell. It's kind of a sweet berry taste to it. There's a little bit of a bite there from the alcohol. I believe we were at 13% is what we were calculating for that. I'll put the calculation for the alcohol content at the bottom here, but that's really good. It's got a nice fruity flavor, a little bit sweet, and it's a really good Moscato. I think with a few months of age, it's really going to be good. But we got the Independence Day holiday coming up here, and for those of my American friends who celebrate Independence Day here in America, happy 4th of July to you. For my friends around the globe, many of you have your own Independence Day celebrated at different times throughout the year, whenever that is. Enjoy your Independence Day, and you're welcome to celebrate with us. But be sure to check out the apple pie video that goes along with this. This is going to be great with the apple pie video, or with the apple pie. So, as always, thank you for watching Smoking and Drinking. Remember to like and subscribe, and Prost!